Have you ever wondered why Ukraine has put so much energy to attack Russian bombers at almost 70 years old? Why risk drones, missiles, and intelligence so valuable to reach planes that at first glance look like museum relics? Today, let's talk about the Tu-95, or how it is known in the West, the Bear. A giant of the skies with history, power, and a strategic role that follows more current than ever. Get ready to understand why this bomber is the true heart of Russia's long-range attacking capacity even 7 decades after its first flight. It all started in the last years of World War II. The Soviet Union, already planning the post-war world, realized that it needed a response to the growing power of the United States. Especially after the Americans revealed to the world the terror of nuclear weapons with the bombing in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was in this context that the Tu-95 project was born. The idea was simple but ambitious, creating a bomber capable of flying long distances, carrying nuclear loads, and reaching U.S. territory. A project that joined cutting-edge engineering, resistance, and a clear mission: nuclear dissuasion. The first flight took place in 1952, and shortly thereafter Bear came into service. With its NK-12 turbopulating engines, to this day the most powerful in the world in this category, the Tu-95 reached an impressive reach of up to 15,000 kilometers. This without having to replenish. A crucial detail at a time when the Soviet Union barely operated tanker planes. The huge 50-meter wingspan, the 4 double propellers spinning in opposite directions, and the ability to fly for more than 12 hours in a row made Bear one of the most respected and feared bombers on the planet. During the Cold War, the Tu-95 became a true symbol of nuclear rivalry. Constantly flying near NATO's airspace, he served as a constant reminder that the Soviet Union had firepower to respond and cause massive destruction anywhere on the planet. It was an air chess game, a deterrent patrol. Over time, the updates came. The best-known model today is the Tu-95MS, equipped with cruise missiles, such as the KH-55 and the most modern KH-101. And here is the key point. These missiles can be released hundreds of kilometers from the target, allowing the Tu-95 not even having to cross enemy air defenses. He attacks from afar, accurately, and if necessary, with nuclear warheads. Even with advanced age, this bomber has never stopped evolving. Unlike many Soviet weapons that became obsolete, the Tu-95 gained relevance precisely for its efficiency. He is cheap to operate, robust, and fulfill his mission with excellence. And that is why it is still widely used, especially in the current context of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Since the beginning of the invasion, the Tu-95 has been one of the main Russian platforms for launching cruise missiles against Ukrainian targets. It attacks remotely, hidden in air bases in the interior of Russia, beyond the reach of most Ukrainian defense systems. But this is changing. On June 1st, Ukraine performed a bold action, attacked Russian air bases used by the Tu-95, a surgical attack which marked a new chapter in the conflict. And more than that, a clear message. Ukraine has the ability to reach delay deep within the Russian territory with millimeter accuracy. But why attack Tu-95 with so many more modern Russian aircraft available? What makes this veteran of the skies so strategic as to become one of Kiev's priority targets? The Ukrainian attack on the Russian air bases that houses the Tu-95 was not random. He had a very clear tactical and strategic goal: to weaken Russia's longest arm. Because as advanced as aircraft such as the Tu-160 or the modern hypersonic missiles, who supports Russia's long-range attack power constantly, economically and reliable is still the old Tu-95. He is the Russian strategic aviation battle horse. Its maintenance is simpler, its flights are cheaper, and, more importantly, it can carry heavy missiles with powerful warheads, flying through thousands of kilometers until you find the ideal release point. This makes it a constant threat, especially for countries with limited defenses such as Ukraine. For Kiev, eliminating these aircraft is not only a military coup, it is also symbolic. It means directly reaching the pride of the Russian Air Force. It means showing that no point is safe. And the psychological impact of this type of operation cannot be underestimated. Imagine seeing a plane that represents Russia's nuclear firepower destroyed on soil, shot down not by a modern fighter or a billion-guided missile, but by relatively low-cost drones and ammunition. It's David against Goliath once again. only now, in the real world, with real consequences. Another important factor is time. The Tu-95 is aging. Even with modernizations, its basic structure remains the same as the 1950s. This means that each destroyed aircraft is practically irreplaceable. Russia cannot simply build a new Tu-95 from scratch in a few weeks. The production lines have been closed for decades. Reactivating them would require billions of rubles, specialized labor that no longer exists, and time something Moscow no longer has to be left in the midst of an ongoing conflict. Meanwhile, new generation bombers such as PAC-DA are still in the developmental phase, and there is no sign of starting service on a large scale anytime soon. This fragility in the replacement chain makes Tu-95 an even more valuable target. Ukraine need not destroy dozens of them. A few successful attacks are enough to create a domino effect. Force Russia to take these operating aircraft out of fear of new attacks. Forcing Moscow to redistribute resources, move bombers to more distant bases, redirect fighters to protect strategic facilities. All of this presses the Russian logistics system, which has been under tension for over 2 years of war. And in this scenario, each Tu-95 that explodes on the floor means hours of less airstrike. Missiles less fired at Ukrainian cities. Extended response margin to Kiev. There is also another factor, the response time. A Tu-95 does not take off in seconds. He needs planning, checking, support team, defined routes. Ukraine knows this. When it reaches the airbase, it does not destroy the plane only. It attacks the whole operation. The fuel, the arms ready, the hangars, the technicians involved. It is a surgical blow that paralyzes an entire gear. And in doing so repeatedly, Kiev-Moscow forces to make difficult decisions. Protect the Tu-95 or use them more cautiously, reducing their frequency of flights and, consequently, the intensity of the attacks. These limitations put Kremlin in an uncomfortable position. Replacing Tu-95 with Tu-160, for example, is not so simple. Although Tu-160 is more modern and fast, it is also more expensive to operate and much more scarce. Each takeoff represents millions in costs. And different from Bear, the Tu-160 was not made for constant patrol flights. It is an impact weapon, not of continuous presence. Therefore, the more you are neutralized, the more Russia will have to choose to stop attacking or spend much more to maintain the same pressure on Ukraine. And that's where the game changes. The old bomber, which many considered outdated, reveals his true value. Not for technology, but for the strategic function it performs. And when this function is interrupted, the impact is felt throughout the battlefield. Now, there is a question. What can the destruction of Tu-95 bombers mean for the future of war? In the next block, you will understand how this change can affect not only Russia and Ukraine, but strategic balance throughout Europe. The destruction of strategic bombers such as Tu-95 is not just a material loss, it is a change in the balance of power. For decades, these planes have guaranteed Russia a constant presence in the skies, even without firing a single missile. Only the sound of Nk-12 engines already served as a warning. The Russian range was global. But now, with the foundations being hit, this air domain is being challenged like never before. For the first time in many years, Moscow needs to deal with the reality that his territory is not invulnerable, that your weapons of retaliation are exposed, that your movements are predictable, and that changes the game completely. With Tu-95 under constant threat, Russia is forced to rethink its entire distance attack doctrine. This involves moving aircraft to safer bases, such as Siberia, which increases flight time and makes logistics difficult. It means reviewing missile routes, spending more fuel, risking more time in the air, all at a time when Kremlin tries to maintain pressure on Ukraine and respond to indirect Western attacks. The exposed vulnerability of the Tu-95 also requires Moscow to accelerate projects that were not yet ready, such as bomber stealth PAC-DA, which can lead to development errors, delays, or budget cuts in other military areas. At the same time, Ukraine gains a powerful narrative, showing the world that it has been able to reach one of the pillars of Russian strategic aviation, reinforces the morale of troops, increases the confidence of the Allies, and pressures the West to provide more weapons. After all, if Kiev can destroy bombers with what he already has, Imagine what he could do with more modern long-range weapons such as precision ballistic missiles or attack drones with greater autonomy. It is a demonstration of tactical efficiency that expands the range of international support, and this is crucial in a prolonged war like this. Meanwhile, military analysts watch carefully. The destruction of the Tu-95 generates discussions about the obsolescence of the great bombers, about the effectiveness of drones in modern wars, and the future of nuclear deterrent. After all, if such an iconic aircraft can be neutralized by a surgical attack, what does that say about the vulnerability of other strategic platforms? Countries like China and the United States, which also operate long-range bombers, are certainly recalculating risks. The war in Ukraine is serving as a test camp for the wars of the future, and the Tu-95, with almost 7 decades of history, is seen at the center of this war lab. From a symbolic point of view, losing the Tu-95 means much more than losing a machine. It is losing a living piece of the Cold War, a constant reminder of nuclear parity that kept the world in balance for decades. It's like seeing one was coming to an end, not by choice but out of necessity. And this transition brings uncertainty. Russia loses the predictability of its most reliable attack vector, and the world watches carefully how it will react. Will you try to retaliate more strongly? Will you bet on more modern weapons? Or will it be forced to admit that its military structure needs deep renewal, something expensive and time-consuming in the midst of sanctions and diplomatic isolation? The old Tu-95, with its noisy design, giant propellers, and robust structure, has become a symbol of an age that insists on not ending. But the modern battlefield is relentless, and the message that Ukraine sends with these attacks is clear. No symbol is untouchable. No military tradition is above the reality of combat. And as much as Russia tries to keep its strategic arsenal operating as in the Cold War times, today's war requires constant adaptation. Those who do not adapt fall even if they are flying at 10,000 meters high with nuclear capacity. With the destruction of part of the Tu-95, Russia feels the pressure not only on the front line, but in its strategic heart. Ukraine, in turn, proves that boldness, combined with intelligence and accuracy, can break any barrier, even bombers who survived the Cold War. The era of winged giants may be coming to an end, and if Bear really falls, the final roar will be felt far beyond the battlefield.